Welcome to the Unapologetic Midlife Podcast. I'm your host, Mindy Labazetta, and I'm here today with Julie Emerson, who is here to share her story on wellness and recovery after an eating disorder. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. So, as always, we're just going to dive in. I met you through our kids' soccer team. I think you were the coach. And we started talking and got to know each other. And, you definitely have a story to tell on your journey to wellness.
Yeah, I think it's neat and kind of incredible to relate to women. It's like as soon as we start going a little deeper into conversations, I find that we all are relating on some form. We related very quickly. We're all kind of going through the same
And
thing. It might look a little
yeah,
different, but we're all going through very similar things. Yeah.
yeah. Midlife, it's a time of I feel like profound as I just hit 48, profound transformation, whether it's physically, mentally, being a mom as our kids get older, like roles change, identities shift. And it's just this really interesting intersection. And I find there's a lot of interest in the stories of like what got a person to that intersection or what's helped them get through periods of midlife. So tell me a little bit about your history and what this journey looked like initially.
So I I grew up in a household probably very similar to most where food is a big center of
Mhm.
everything, and that can be a really great thing, and it also can be abused. And when there's mental health problems already at the foundation, and I grew up in a house with unfortunately some turmoil, and food from a very early age for me became uh, a tool and almost a toxic best friend.
Okay, always accessible, right? Because we gotta eat. It's part of your
Yes.
daily life. Like, it's there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, early on, food became this toxic best friend, and at what point did you start to recognize maybe, this wasn't going in the direction that you wanted this to go in?
My then boyfriend, who became my husband, left for the army when we were 19, and
Okay,
he would write me and he would talk about the things that he was doing in basic training, and it started to get me to think about that when he got out of his training, he was going to be healthier looking and maybe healthier minded. And it
okay,
just struck something in me that made me, for the very first time, think about I was overweight at that time and
okay,
significantly.
okay,
And food was, it manifested in that way at that time
okay,
in my life. And from early teenage years into roughly about 19, the first
okay.
time I ever thought about dieting
Okay.
was,
So food was a source of comfort prior to this point in time where your husband's away, he's in basic training, he's going to come home and you're thinking, okay, he's doing all these things and kind of reflecting upon that. And maybe not in the healthiest way.
right, exactly. That was the first time that I think I realized, although doctors had told me previous to that that I was obese, and that still didn't register, it really didn't light a fire under me, unfortunately, to feel like, number one, to accept that I had a problem, and to that I wanted to change it at that point. But there was something that, what, this is my buddy, this is my best friend, my boyfriend, and kind of felt like pretty early on we were gonna spend the rest of our lives. We didn't know at that point how,
Yeah.
long,
Yeah. But you were
but
young when you were together. So you started
yep,
out kind of life together, essentially. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, and that really just kinda lit a fire under me, but because I had such a poor foundation of just mental health in general, I did not know how to go about it in the right way. I didn't have great examples, and it started a journey of a manifestation of an eating disorder in a completely different realm, and stayed there for a long time.
Yeah. So you went from maybe perhaps if you're considered obese, I'm just trying to use the technical terms. I know there's sensitivity around this, so I'm just being mindful of how our conversation is flowing. But I went from being labeled obese, maybe overeating in aspects, to now you called it dieting, but restriction is kind of where I'm going with this, like the opposite, the extreme.
Exactly, yeah, it became from I felt like I was a confident person overweight, but I realized that it was just, masked. It was, surface. I was trying to,
Hide
love myself
something?
where I was, but absolutely was not, once I really became aware of how I was feeling. And losing weight started to make me realize that I really didn't like myself at
Okay.
all.
Yeah. So now you're like peeling back the layers. You're starting to look inward a little bit and were you recognizing that when you were restricting food that you didn't internally like how you looked or feel good in your body?
It was, I'd say at that point, probably more of a surface
Okay.
realization or maybe just a little beneath the surface because I still had no idea what I was going to discover once I really, peeled back everything eventually. But at first, I think it was just more of a more surface level. I am not happy at this place, and then it became a whole new, whether you want to call it addiction or obsession
Mhm.
of now losing weight.
Right. And what comes with that, right? So if you're somebody who is considered heavier or obese and now you're losing weight, now people are noticing, right? Because if you're restricting, you're probably losing weight pretty rapidly as well.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, were you exercising in there? Like, what did this look like?
At first, a little bit, but not that much right away. It was dieting. A neighbor of
Okay.
mine, for the first time in my life, I heard of the Atkins diet. That was,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
yep,
Okay. Yep.
yep. That
From
was
that
the
generation
first
too.
place. Yeah. Yeah. And then it became a much more big, people start, keto and just low carb in general. But
Yep.
that was the first time and the South Beach diet.
Yep. Which is also minimal carbs too, right? I believe. So I know they're all variations of high protein, low carb dynamics. Okay.
Yeah. I started there and I lost weight very quickly.
Hmm.
And at least the first, 20 pounds came off.
And you're young too. So are you like 20 when this started?
Yeah, I probably, when he left at 19 and I turned, yeah, right about 20. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So youth is on your side. Um, and you're switching your eating habits and clearly you're seeing some results.
But I never shed the, the misuse of food.
Hmm.
So it didn't matter, I could do that extreme for a little bit. I could go 3, 4 weeks of less than 20 carbs, whatever it was to go into that ketosis, and I was always
Hmm.
obsessed with that, the numbers and, all that. But
Hmm.
the relationship with food
Yeah.
always crept back in. So I
Yeah.
never learned how to have a healthy relationship with food. So it
Yeah.
was, and the binge eating, which I had no idea was what I was doing. We didn't talk
Hmm.
about, now with the internet and social media, I feel, that
Yeah.
these things are so much more, I guess, readily available for us to understand maybe in a different way.
Yeah, we get on Google. Oh, like my kids will be in the car, they'll ask me something, and I'll be like, I don't know. That's an answer for Google. Like, we'll Google it and we'll see. Right. Like now we have access to information, but growing up, I mean, I'm 48. I'm not sure. I don't know. I know you're around my ballpark somewhere.
43.
Okay. Yeah. A little younger than me, but still that generation, we didn't grow up with the internet the way these kids are today. you know? So we didn't have access to information. If you knew somebody who was going through something similar, you might have been educated about it, but how would you know?
No. And I think to an extent, it's a lot more normalized to overeat. When I became, which it got to a point where I became very skinny, or thin, however you want to call it, very underweight.
Mhm.
Um, and that definitely received attention in a different way. And I think was in some form, I mean, what I'm about to say actually, I think is kind of contradictory though, because in some forms it was more accepted to be,
Well, during
smaller.
our time too, growing up, we grew up with anorexic, models. Like this was like it was everywhere. It was tall or long and lean, right? Like thin. And lean was not muscular. Like I remember when I had to transition into the weightlifting world at midlife during perimenopause. I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to be big. And my fiance is like, you're not going to be big because you need to like consume the right amount of food to get big. And you're not going to be big in the way your brain is internalizing it. But I came from that mindset, fat free everything, limit. It was such a restrictive environment, I think, that we grew up in. It also made it very easy because I don't know, is anybody telling you, oh, you're too thin, you're too thin? Probably not. They're probably telling you, oh, you look great. Look at you. You lost all
Yeah.
this weight.
It is really hard to shed that mindset that
Yeah,
we grew up with in magazines, and still I think it exists. I think we're a lot
it
more.
totally exists still. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was definitely, to an extent, revered.
Hmm.
We were uplifted, and also at my skinniest or smallest, I was teaching group exercise.
Okay, so there's the other part of this, and you mentioned like addiction, right? Like, so now you're working out, but you're also teaching, and there's this addiction kind of component that comes into play with the exercise.
Yes, it went from overeating to then dieting to
Mhm.
then latching on to that great feeling of the scale going down and clothes getting smaller and smaller, and that's
Mhm.
great to an extent. And if you can kind of find the place where
Balance, yes.
and and you realize that you love yourself. I mean, that's the biggest, but if you never worked on that initially, then you're never going to get there.
Well, I feel like the bar keeps moving.
Yes. Yes. It wasn't good enough. You thought, well, if I could just lose 5 more pounds, then I'll love myself. But if you didn't learn to love yourself before that,
Yeah.
it's a never ending, right? So, but because I never got a grip on the binge eating, there hit a moment one day, and I'll never forget that day, where I realized that I was telling myself at that point, I'm never going to change. I'm never going to be able to stop this. What if I just throw up my food?
Right. So now it's like, and this often evolves into this next factor. So I can eat it all, I can get that satisfaction, but now I can purge it and get rid of it.
Yes, that was the beginning of a whole new realm of it for me. It was, well, of course, completely dreadful, the physical feeling of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
the emotional, the mental feeling of it was sky high. It was a
Yeah.
whole new addiction for me,
Mhm.
and really scary how that took a hold of me for the
Yeah.
next. And it also manifested into, I realized I could do both. I could eat and then get rid of all my food, through
Mhm.
growing it up, or also exercise.
Mhm. Yeah.
That became a new, and so I thought, and I wasn't conscious of any of this,
You're going through the
what I was
motions.
doing. Right. And I thought, you know what? Well, I should get in the fitness industry because I didn't have a path at that point for a career, and it could fit into our lives. My husband was in the military. If we moved, I
Mhm.
could take
Bring
that
it
with
with you.
me.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I became one track minded. So, which led me to, I was very good at it. For some reason, I had this much confidence in life, but I could stand up in front of a whole class of mostly women,
Which
and
that's the toughest crowd, I feel like the women.
yeah, and I could stand up in front of them all and tell them how to be healthy while I'm doing what I'm doing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I felt it was like this whole other world, and I lived there for about 15 years. I
Balancing the purging along with the extreme exercising. I feel like your body had to be going through it, right? I mean, it's only maintainable for so long. And I don't know, was there guilt or shame tied to this cycle as well? Because I don't think we talk about that enough in this realm. The guilt and the shame that kind of came with this cycle that you were kind of looped into.
well, the first part of that, how can the body withstand that? the human body is resilient, especially when we're young.
Yep.
I
But
can't believe how I would teach 6 a.m. spin classes on no food, barely any reserve from the day before. I would be 85, 90 pounds roughly around that time.
and I know you're small, like, you're shorter, like, you're a small woman, right? Your frame is small, so but that's little. That's like
It
nothing.
still is, if looking at my old self at that time, which I barely have any pictures of that time because I still hated myself,
Okay.
whether I was 60, 70 pounds overweight or
Mhm.
20, 30 pounds underweight, you know, it
Mhm.
yeah, so I but when I do see those pictures, it's incredible how but people still would ask me after these classes. I would teach weightlifting classes, spin classes, all of it, and they would ask me after all of them what my tricks are, what my secret is, what am I doing, you know? And of course, I would lie through my teeth
"Oh, all
about
working out, eat the right
yeah.
things."
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yes. Yeah, because how could I tell them the truth? I hated myself. The guilt and the shame, the cycle of that, it is a really powerful it had such a grip on me because it was like, the more I did it, the more I hated myself, the more shameful, the more guilty I felt
Yeah.
about it, and it just became this until gradually I learned to rise by the grace of God, therapy, a mix of, all of it, the things we can do here, the things that I,
Learned
think
along the way, maybe just a little life experience, or I guess a layer of this too, exhaustion, right? To keep up with what you were doing. I mean, that's something I feel like midlife I've really had to embrace. Like I was a don't stay home on a Friday night kind of person. I always had to fill my schedule with something. Now I'm like, I need rest. I need good nights of sleep. I need periods of quiet time and not doing things. But back then, you're burning the candle on both ends. Now, did you have children yet at this time either?
I had my first one,
Okay.
unfortunately, still very much in my sickness.
Okay. Okay. And she's healthy. I mean, everything is good. I just want to point that out. Right.
By the grace of God, I had 2 healthy children through this. I nursed them both. I don't know
Wow.
how
And
to
the
you
demands on your body through that. Holy cow.
I know, and I mean, when we get to roughly about 40, I know it's different for sometimes maybe 35-ish for people, maybe 45-ish for people, but we do get to a point though where we realize that the things we could do at 25, 30.
Cannot do anymore. Oh
Oh,
my God. I would
I think
die.
about the body I have now and and how good I treat myself now and what I
Yeah.
did then and got away with. It's incredible what the
Yeah.
body it shouldn't withstand that, but
But it is. You're right, though. It is just quite miraculous just how resilient the human body is. Um, and how much healing can happen too. I'm going to circle even, back to where we were at. Going through this cycle, going through this loops, teaching all these classes, what happened when you finally like, what was the turning point for you where you're like, "I can't do this anymore, and I don't wanna do this anymore," because I think that's an important component. People will go to treatment facilities for eating disorders, but I truly think, and I think this with any kind of recovery in any aspect, therapy too, you have to want to do something different. Otherwise, it's that definition of insanity. It's the same thing over and over again with the different results, but you're doing the same thing. So, at what point were you like, I need to do something different than I'm currently doing?
there we had gotten to a point, I say I'm very blessed to have a partner, a husband who
Hmm.
was always supportive of me. And while maybe on the one hand, you could call it enabling, I don't like to think of it that way though, because I think that he did everything to love me where I was.
Right, sometimes we have to meet a person where they're at, and I think that's the hardest part of any kind of addiction or unhealthy behavior is a person has to want to change.
Yeah, but he did know for a long time. I became so kind of open, and I guess it is what it is kind of mentality, and started to let it out that I was doing that around several people in my life.
Okay,
So the shame and part of that was, and I'll start from the beginning, so I'll try
okay.
not to be all over the place with it, that therapy and addressing the things, of course, I had parent issues. I mean,
Everybody's got something. Yeah,
right? So I feel like you get to an age where I have never met a soul who doesn't have. So unfortunately,
yeah. Just
But
life. They do the
yeah,
best they can, but they also, excuse my French, fucked us up a little bit along the way, right? There's always this balance and you're trying to navigate it. Yep. Yeah.
yes, yes. Hopefully we, gradually break the cycle and hopefully our kids will go to therapy a little less than,
Hopefully that's the
than we
hope,
did.
right?
Yeah, but we're all doing the best we can. And yeah, and I had a lot of trauma, a lot of abandonment
Mhm.
issues. I felt very alone from a very young age. My parents both struggled with severe mental health, bipolar disorder,
Okay.
both of them, and they had suicide attempts through my childhood at ages where I was old enough to remember, starting at 11, up.
Yep.
So I went through a lot of things. And so going through therapy and addressing why I was the way why I felt, and how I got there. And that helped me to get to a point of I was very aware of who I was and why I was there.
Mhm.
And it got to a place where I just couldn't shake the habit of it. It became
Of awareness, like, of just understanding that awareness and being mindful in every moment that you're in, like, is that
the
kinda what you're
habit of
referring
the
to?
physical habit of eating food. It became more of like maybe just the physical habit of, smoking cigarettes or, having a drink in your hand, whatever the addiction is.
There ha okay, yep.
It became more of a like a physical habit of that every day. I could get through my whole entire day, which at the worst of my addiction, I was binging and purging anywhere from 5, 6 times a day to maybe 10,
Wow.
15 times a day. Yeah, it was ugly. It had a strong grip on me to a point where I was in my house sometimes all day long. I couldn't even leave because I was so, I had to be in my comfort zone where I knew I could do it because on the harder days, that's how I got through my severe depression. That's, where,
Wow.
the emptiness, the filling the dark holes that I hadn't filled. So,
Yeah.
but I addressed all that. I got to a place where I really felt, just completely kind of the weights were lifted off of me of, a lot of the whys and the hows. I got there, but that physical, but so it got to a place where I could get through the whole entire day. But at night, like maybe some pick up the glass of wine,
Mhm.
I was going to binge on food and
Mhm.
purge it.
Mhm.
Once and I knew that I was stuck in that, but I had no idea how to just break that habit. My husband
Yeah.
started looking into he would do anything for me and started looking into we were in Arizona at the time, and one of the best treatment facilities was in Arizona, a few hours from us in Tucson. It would
Okay.
have been $75,000 for a
Who has it? Not no co not covered by insurance.
yep, not just
Out of
yeah.
pocket.
And we were considering that because we knew that I was going to die from this eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once
There's severe
that was on the
complications that come from severe eating disorders like this.
yes, I and once that was on the table and I realized the weight of that and what that would do to our family, I think that started to really connect. Something started moving in my head, realizing that, yes, that is there for me. And I was so grateful that, I had that partner who was willing to do that and maybe that would have made me better. But what if I could do this on my own?
Right. Well, what if I don't have to spend $75,000 and potentially put my family in debt or drain our savings account because I can do this on my own, or I can do this with the help of a therapist or something that's more accessible? And maybe there's some aspects of it covered by health insurance. I mean, I'm like a podcast junkie. I listen to all kinds of things. People overcome things all the time. And it's just, it doesn't need to take a $75,000 treatment facility for you to get through this. So, you,
Somewhere in my gut, I guess I knew that I grabbed something in me that I never knew was there, and the turning point, what the day was I was laying in bed, it was June 1st. I'll never forget, it was the first day that I hadn't binged and purged in years. I hadn't spent a day without it.
with
It
food
really
fully in
was
your
something
stomach,
very near.
digesting and moving through your body.
Yeah. 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 The weight of that when I say it out loud and, of course, I think about it semi often, I guess, and I'm so grateful. Sometimes it hits me like a ton of bricks of how far I've come. It's almost been 9 years. This next June 1st will
Hey,
be 9 years.
congratulations. Good.
Thank you, yeah. Um, and it's it's something that, I don't know why that morning, but that day something just and I was laying in bed and I said 2 words to myself that I was gonna do that I had never said before. I never read it. I don't know where I got it from, but I just said to myself, I had the same thoughts that I did every other morning, which mostly was, I can't live another day. I can't do it again today. I
Yeah.
gotta, try harder, but I'd end up in the same place every night. That morning, I just said, I can't do it. All I'm gonna do today is love and forgive myself. I don't know why those 2 where that came from, but I realized eventually that it was because I had not shed enough layers of the self-sabotage and hate that I really was focusing on just letting myself go for all that I had done in that last, in all that time.
Yeah.
The example that I had shown my small child, she does not remember, but, the guilt of that and that I was gonna possibly raise another, version of me, and I
Because you
didn't
have a
want.
daughter and a son, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, how old was she by the time you were like, "Okay, I need to stop doing this?"
She was 5.
Okay.
Yeah, and my little one was 1.
Okay, so they're 4 years apart. So, yeah, by 5, I mean, she's not necessarily aware of what's going on fully, right? But also, I don't know, was that in the back of your head somewhere? Like, I don't want my daughter to be seeing me do this. Like, I don't want my son to see me do this either. I know he was younger, but particularly your daughter because she was older. I don't be demonstrating that this is how women should have to live their lives.
Yeah, I had watched both of my parents. They both had eating disorders in different
Different
realms,
ways.
and just watching them kinda hate themselves all that time, and I did it through food, but it really didn't matter what the things I couldn't let those kids see me, in this shell of a I still was, I dealt with a lot of things in therapy, but I wasn't a strong person at that point.
And maybe you didn't think you were strong. I think you were in many ways, but I don't think you saw it in yourself. Like you didn't embody it. When I say embody it, like I'm living it and eating, breathing this self love and compassion that maybe that little girl part of you was in there self soothing and felt like she needed to fit into some sort of stereotypical mold of what you were supposed to look like. And I don't know, I think living to that inauthentic aspect of yourself, like teaching the class and then telling people all the tricks that you have up your sleeve of what you not necessarily what we were doing, the truth behind it, but I don't know, like how good did that feel to finally, like you said, I started to tell people, like unveil the truth of what was actually going on. How good did that feel to live more authentically and be honest about that?
That and that's such a major element of it too, because it's exhausting trying to be something that you're not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is a big part of why it was hard to kind of break that physical habit. And like you said, and I should touch on that more, that it was hard to face that stopping this friend of mine. We would call it my thing. Like my husband, we would refer to it as like,
Name, okay.
yeah, yeah. And it was comforting in a way because I knew that I was it's hard. It can be hard to live a healthy lifestyle, right? It can be hard to make good choices, and that it's a different kind of hard. It was much harder what I was doing, but it was a hard that I was comfortable.
Right, it was familiar, right? It's like the little kid who's in an abusive home and removed from the abusive home and has the option to go back to the parents even though there could be abuse there. They always wanna go home because it's familiar. I know what to expect from that versus like that other home, I don't really know what I'm expecting from that. They don't consciously know this, but the research supports it. So what you were doing was familiar.
It was
Even
such a
if
part of my identity too.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was your forward facing self that emerged out of these behaviors.
yes. That was, and it was interesting too because I started to kind of be accepted for it in a way. I almost feel like too that some of my friends who knew about it were almost maybe even a little like envious in a way that like, well, and I even had 1 or 2 people I remember then saying like, that's actually kind of, an interesting concept.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
thank God they never did it, and more healthy people never went down that, but yeah, it almost yeah, it was a comfortable place to be in
despite the layers.
on the surface, of course, so many uncomfortable but it felt, it was the easy way out, and accepting that once I was completely ready to shed that day, that first day, I'll never forget. I went through like how I usually did in a day. My daughter had a friend's birthday party that night.
Okay,
I knew I would be faced with a whole lot of food. I became so comfortable with my habit, my sickness, whatever you want to call it, that I would overeat at functions. And I
okay,
would
so
either
people would see you eating too. They'd see you consuming this food, and again, what's your secret?
yeah. Yeah. And maybe I'd go in the bathroom there, or maybe I could wait till I was at home if it didn't hurt enough, because of course it hurt to do that, it
Mhm.
um and that day, and usually I would have so much anxiety around that and figure out, like,
Yeah.
where's the bathroom and how far is home from there, and how can I make this work? And that day, it was shockingly one of the easiest days of my life, because I put no pressure on myself that day, other than just to love it. It was the first day, because when you start a change, whether it's, you're going to start working out or eating better or working harder, your job, maybe whatever it is, we can put a lot of expectation on that, right? And a lot of, so every day that I would say, today's going to be the day and I'm going to do it, it would be okay. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that. And before I even started, I was too overwhelmed to do anything.
Yeah.
So that day, without any expectation of what the change was going to look like, other than loving and forgiving myself, it was like, and I didn't even stay present with those words that whole day. I didn't constantly repeat them. It was such a strange a thing I can't describe, other than I did pray. Uh, so I
It's
don't know
okay.
if it was
Prayer,
God.
yeah, whether it's God or it's I don't know. I mean, I think it's whatever is important to you and however you interpret that. There's
And
so
that I was
many.
just ready, whether it was
Yeah.
the universe lined up for me to be ready that day. And I
Yeah.
don't think that God did it for me. Maybe because I prayed, maybe, God helped things to open up maybe and be a little more clear. But
Yeah.
there was a readiness that just wasn't there before. And that was the
Suddenly
easy,
it
I went to
was.
that party,
Yeah.
and and it was the easiest thing. I didn't eat anything at that party. That was something that I guess just instinctively known, that I'm not ready to just go out in the world.
Yeah, I do this. Okay.
Just be a normal person, eating a little bit here and there, and, was not
Okay.
ready for that. I don't remember what I ate that day. I do know, though, that for the next year, I identified over the next, I don't know how many days, what were my trigger foods that I knew or thought strongly I was going to have to avoid. So I
Yeah.
was, and not necessarily for weight. And I had to have a conversation with myself very early on, preparing myself for that. You may gain weight.
Yes. Right. You.
And not
You.
only is that okay,
Yes.
but it's necessary.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was, yeah, a bit, that was, accepting that was huge too, because being small, skinny, thin,
It's all your
un
identity. You're now going to have to shed this identity because if you haven't been allowing your body to digest and absorb nutrients and food and even I feel like you have to regulate your digestive tract too and your gut after all this. Like, I don't think I do remember having a friend I grew up my best friend who did go through this. So I had a front row seat to what this looked like. And man, I feel like before this, I didn't really know what that consisted of. I didn't know what that looked like when you're looking at your best friend who weighs 80 pounds and shouldn't weigh 80 pounds, that I don't know, like it did something for me, you know? And how do you tell something to somebody when they aren't in a good place, you know? I don't know. I guess I'm circling back to your husband being supportive and just, I don't think he enabled. I think you had to be ready. And I think you got ready. You got to that place where you were ready and you were, I don't know, preparing for whatever adjustment was to come from this choice of getting yourself back on track.
and that's something I've talked about with, because I've shared this. I told you before we got on that I waited a year to
Mhm.
publicly talk about it. I made a Facebook post a
Okay.
year to the day, and it comes up in my memories every year, and I usually, reshare it.
Little reminder, yep.
Yeah,
I think I've seen it.
yeah, and I waited that year because I felt so unsteady. It felt unreal, at first to something that it had been a part of me in some form or another, the food addiction, the unhealthy relationship with food since as long when I started eating food, and
Yeah.
it really was just such a big part of me that at first it really felt like, am I finally becoming who I want to become? Like, is this
Yeah.
and it did not feel stable. So I treated it like it was this fragile piece of glass that I really had to nurture and protect.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to talk about it until I felt confidently that I had gotten to a place where I'm never going back there.
Yeah.
I'm going to
And I don't
struggle.
blame you.
Perfect.
You should protect that because the other layer of this is everybody's going to want to give you their opinion. No matter what challenge you face, as soon as you make it public, people want to share their opinion of what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, how you should be handling it. There also is going to be people who come forward who are like, oh my God, thank you so much for talking about this. I went through this too. I mean, you're always going to have different things. I think though by sharing it and getting to that place where you were ready, because I think that's important, you had to be comfortable sharing your story. So I think getting to that place allows you to like be able now to help others by sharing this.
And that's what I think sharing it was a way for me to, in one sense, kind of relieve some of the people who had worried about me. Of course, people
Mhm.
close to me and even just the people who came to my classes for years and, I didn't know outside of there, but, you grow bonds with people, and I know so many people worried, and I wasn't just shouting it to people that I was doing it.
Mhm. And they're not necessarily going up to you because they don't want to upset you, right? So I know there was people asking you what your tricks were, but there was definitely people who were like, "Oh my gosh, like I think I know what's going on here," right?
Yeah, so I think for those people, I kind of wanted to make it public and give them a sense of ease, but I also felt like if I could do this, and I feel like I was probably as hopeless, I wasn't just addicted to food throughout my life. I was addicted to all kinds of things, whether
Yeah.
drugs, and I got kicked out of school in ninth grade from high school because of drugs.
Okay.
I had overcome a lot in my life, and I
Yeah.
and I absolutely felt like I was hopeless. So, if I could go from that, I almost felt like a responsibility. Let me be honest. I didn't feel like people were going to judge me for it.
Good.
Maybe people would, but I wasn't concerned with that. And I shared it. And partially a big part of it was that I knew how much of a gem that I had in my husband's support. And I knew that if I could, for any of the people who saw that post, and there were a lot, and I've shared since then over the
Mhm.
years, and on every single time that I post, whether they comment on there or they private message me on the side, it is anywhere from a mother who has a child or sibling or friend, somebody who um has gone through it or themselves.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
But for the ones who are going through it with a loved one, it's so important. It has been so important for me to explain Jim's side of it, and that he's
Yeah.
not what I'd consider Nabla, more just gentle,
Mhm.
loving me through it. He was
Mhm.
never mean to me.
Mhm.
He never put me down for it, or even was harsh, like, you should just stop. And how many times do addicts hear that? Like,
Yep. If it was that easy, they would just stop. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. And other people had said that to me in my life, like, you stop. You know, I wish, I could. So I think for a lot of people who don't know, what to say and what to do, they'll say he never knew what to say or what to do.
But
But
he showed
because
up.
everything that he said or did came from love,
Mhm.
it was like that to me, I think, was such a big catalyst for me to have that freedom, that support, to know that, you know, while this has all been hard, but this is gonna be the hardest battle of my life, at least up
Mhm.
to this point.
Mhm.
and knowing that I had that support through all that other hard, that was I
It's
couldn't have
huge.
done I don't think I would have done it without it.
Yeah. I think midlife is a really tough time. And I know there's lots of like memes about our husbands chewing and breathing and all the perimenopausal stuff. And I'll send him to mine and we laugh about it. As he's bringing his pita chips and carrots and hummus into the living room. And I'm like, no, sir, not right now, but I joke, but it is so important. And there's somebody I follow. She had made a post this past week about, I need to like go come on here just to say thank you to my husband for just being the most amazing support and always rooting for me and never making me feel crazy for my wild ideas or my career shifts or, he is like literally my biggest cheerleader. And it's so important. It's so important to remember that your spouse or your partner, whatever the dynamic is, like loves you. They're not just going to run away when it gets hard, right? Because I'm sure it got really fucking hard at points. Like, relationships are not easy. They all take work, even the easiest of relationships, let alone going through something big like this, right? And recovery from an eating disorder is eating disorders, multiple there, because let's face it, a lot of them do go hand in hand, but it's a lot. He was able to continue to show up and that's great. I think people need to hear that.
Yeah, and I mean, I say I couldn't have done it without him. I hope that I still could have, and but maybe it just would have taken longer, but
Best outcomes are gonna be when people support us through the hard things.
yeah, so if people aren't sure how to support someone through that, and sometimes, and I do think that there would have come to a point where he may have just been like, "This is too hard. You're killing yourself. I can't watch that."
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that was always in the back of my mind, that while I was so grateful that and he was able to stay and be there through it, but I don't think it's fair and I don't think it's human, that he would have been able to, I don't know how long, and
yeah, yeah, it's a
but
lot.
as long as you can be there, for people, and it's okay if you don't know exactly what to, but just loving them through it, however that, means it. And we went through really hard times. My addiction was uh, really hard on both of us in
Mhm,
ways,
mhm,
and my self-hatred was so bad that there was a point in our marriage where we had separated because I felt that I wasn't good enough for him, and I couldn't have put him through that, and I didn't want
yeah,
to, and I didn't feel like I could change, and he fought for it for over 2 years.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, we really, like, this it wasn't it's funny how, you look at people's journey and you might see like a blurb, right? But
Right, right. Social media is a picture. It's a small moment in the grand scheme of a relationship.
yeah, and our 24 years together has really been, and my journey with myself and the struggles in order to get to a place of, I always describe our life as being here now. It's
Mhm,
not here most of the time, and it's
yeah.
not here. Of course, there's
You
stuff.
have a stable life you've created, and that didn't happen coming from it sounds like the home life naturally that you came from, and I'm same thing, some dynamics in my childhood that were not setting me up for the best outcomes if we're looking at it from an ACE score perspective, right? You have adverse childhood experiences, parents with severe mental health, and your outcomes, you weren't expected to do great in life based on that. But this is the great part. Resiliency. That doesn't factor in human resiliency or that one supportive person in your life. And this is primarily talking about adverse childhood experiences. So maybe it was a grandparent, or maybe it was a teacher at school, or that friend. Like somewhere along the way, somebody believed in you. And whether it's a granular of hope, the size of a salt granular, somewhere in there, you still believed somewhere that you deserved better. And amidst all the self-hatred, self-sabotage, you were able to find that granular of hope and you found your way back.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and sometimes it's okay if things just can't be explained.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right? I can't tell you in a cerebral way why, it worked out, why that day was different, and why, I was able to, other than, maybe I just was ready. And, and once you're ready, and it taught me the probably one of the greatest lessons, if not the greatest lesson, that I have control over everything in my life, or I can
Choice.
control
There's a lot you can
everything
control
that
with
is controllable
your
in my life.
behaviors.
I
Yeah.
have that power. We're always waiting, right? I think we're taught, young, unfortunately, we see in the movies,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna rescue, it's all gonna work out.
The rescuing doesn't happen. Yeah. When I say supportive person in your life, somebody believed in you and somebody was there for you in moments, but they can never do the work for you. You had to decide that you were ready to face as hard as it was going to be to make the changes. But that day, for whatever reason, you were ready. And I can remember moments in my life where I've had those moments where I'm fucking ready. I'm ready. I'm
And
here.
that word that you said, "decide," it
Yeah. You
choice.
decided.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the choice, and everything I learned from then, because I kept telling myself that I couldn't and that I wasn't going to, and
Hmm.
I'm not.
Hmm.
And the second I started changing that conversation and telling myself that I am going to, well, how am I gonna do it? By making a different choice,
Yeah.
right? And having that, taking responsibility for myself, that was huge, of course, right? Owning what I'd done, facing that, and, food was the Band-Aid, it was the mask, it was filling, it was
Yep.
the avoidance,
Yep.
right? Once I didn't have that, of course, I was slammed with everything that I had been avoiding for,
Yeah.
while I did work out a lot of stuff in therapy, there still were a lot of things that I really was not facing within
Hmm.
myself. So having that self-awareness, and I did repeat the serenity prayer to
Hmm.
myself
Okay.
often, still
Yeah.
sometimes on those days where you really,
It's radical acceptance. It's radically accepting there are things that I'm going to attempt to control, right? My behaviors, my choices. But despite that, there's always going to be things out of my control. Like you felt like you were out of control, where in reality, that was something that you learned to control with yourself.
I
And
remember
I've,
him telling me and trying to give me that compliment, "You can do this," You hear
hmm,
that from, whoever in your life, yes, but if you don't believe it, and so, yeah, I became very present with that. I do have hope, that I have it somewhere
hmm,
within me, and
hmm,
because I finally did not have all that pressure on myself to know what I was supposed to do and be able to do all of it, and
hmm,
just start with the very most that day, I didn't tell myself that I was only gonna eat this much or only gonna do this much or I was gonna exercise. It was just do it. Just go through the day. Just love and forgive yourself today. And I didn't even know what that meant. And maybe just those words were a distraction from the other things that I had been telling myself, all the things that I
yeah,
should do and need to do to
yeah,
change. They were
maybe
gone. And every day now that's one of, I think, the biggest, I'd say, tricks, secrets now, that I kind
lessons
of,
you've learned from this experience. Yeah.
yeah, we don't have to know, every day, and just start with the first thing every day. Just start. Just do one thing
Yep.
and it all falls into place. And I am now a very disciplined person, and a very forgiving person from the times that I'm not disciplined. It's okay, because not perfect, but loving
Yeah.
yourself through it all, right? Forgiving
I think
yourself.
each of us are perfectly imperfect. And I think it's the imperfections with each individual that are the things that we learn to love about people. Like, what is perfect too? My version of perfect might be different than your version of perfect. And that's kind of funny. There is no such thing as perfect if we really want to think about it. But I don't know. I think sometimes we take on these values or these perspectives or these societal norms that we apply to ourselves, but they're not really things that we want to live by. They're not what we want our life to look like. I mean, how many times in our lives have we, as women specifically, been told something? I remember, going with my grandmother years ago to Phantom of the Opera for the first time. And this was when I was in high school, and everybody commenting on her and how well behaved I was and how proper I was. And she would beam, she would be so proud. And I think, oh, I'm so proud, to be those things. Like it's again fitting into those stereotypes that others have placed upon us versus like, what do I want this to look like? And what am I okay with?
It's so freeing.
So freeing.
Uh, Shedding all of the shoulds and the
Yeah.
norms, and it's interesting too, being women and getting to a certain age, like I said,
Oh
whether it's
yeah.
35, 40, 45, whatever it is, but we all it seems that, I haven't met a woman yet. And the conversation does tend to go because we're all going through it,
We
right?
are. Yep. Yep.
And it's present on our minds, and that that there's a lot of new things popping up too that we can't control.
My God, yes. Oh, yes. I'm not sleeping. What is this belly that I've never had in my whole entire life that now I have to work out to keep managed? What is the food that I can't eat or my husband's chewing or whatever? Like all the things. Um, and it's learning to kind of embrace it. It's learning to manage it. I think having conversations to normalize it, which women I don't think we're doing from our mother's generation. I always say, how did women before us go through this and not talk about this?
And I
It's wild.
mean, like you were talking about it and
Yeah.
professionals, but doesn't have to be, but like that you are making it more present and it gives us I'll be honest, I did find it overwhelming at first with well, that's not true, not at first. At first, I remember one day I opened Instagram and it said something about, "Are you in perimenopause and feeling joint pain?" And that was the first time that I ever seen joint pain, and I kept saying to my husband, "Why does everything hurt?"
Right. Yes. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
so relieving to know that, I mean, of course, I don't want my fellow
Of
women
course.
to be
But to
hurt.
normalize, okay, I'm not dying, but this is something that happens as our hormones shift.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be a little overwhelming that, we're kind of hearing from. I think I'd much rather see though more of, than not at all. But
Yeah.
I do think sometimes we're a little inundated though with this, even now, some shoulds with that this is what, you should be looking like or doing. And I've had to
Mhm.
tune out all of that and just,
Mhm.
I want to listen to and hear and see people talking about, yes, things that work for them, but also just talking about just what they're going through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think again, it just normalizes experiences and I that's the thing with like perimenopause, menopause. Like one woman could go through all of the 100 things, or one woman might have like two things, or some women are like, wow, like I went through that phase and I had like no issues at all. Fantastic. But I don't know. I think this is where it kind of comes full circle of all the things that, do come up. And I want to hear stories of resilience. Well, how did you get through those hard things? I think that's kind of more what I look at. Like, what are the solutions to that? I know as the kind of therapist that I am, like bringing in aspects of mental health is physical. And I reiterate that your mental health is impacted by your physical health and vice versa. And to try to actually separate those, or just like the medical models want to separate our sections of our body and separate it, it's all interconnected. And I had to take an honest look at like, okay, what are the things that I'm not doing that I need to be better at? And when my kids were little, I was not doing any of the things at all. And then I went through divorce and my ex-husband had the kids 50% of the time. And I found myself being like, okay, like I have time to exercise now. I have time to get that workout in. I have time to go grocery shopping and prep dinners. I have time to kind of do these things now. And what it did for me was just realize like moms have to take care of themselves. We're taking care of everybody else, but we have to take care of us too. And we have to get a good night's sleep and we have to get the workout in or the walk in or whatever that looks like for you. We have to take care of ourselves. And it's hard raising kids. I love my kids to pieces and I wouldn't change it, but it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I feel like as a mom, you understand that. It's challenging at times. There's challenging components of it.
But, that's another great reason of why people talking about it and professionals in the industry talking about it and giving us tangible things of because what you just said, I heard that as you learn that to get through the things that, I mean, some things we can control, some things we
Mhm.
can't,
Right.
but taking care of yourself
Yes.
the best
Yep.
that you can. And still some things, it might not, it still might be rough through these times, but
But making
the
time for
feeling,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't mean like spa days and manicures and pedicures. Like, I just mean the things that we're neglecting that we need. Like, I have a weighted vest in my basement in my neighborhood. I walk with my weighted vest. My fiance has a weighted vest. He walks with his weighted vest. Like, we have a gym we put in the basement. I can go down there and get a 20-minute workout in so easily, and it's convenient for me. I'm not going to the gym. There's a barrier there, right? So I think a lot of this is meeting people where they're at. 10 minutes, even if it's a 10-minute workout, it's better than no workout. And guess what that does for you? It releases so many endorphins. You're helping your bones because let's face it, midlife, we're facing that, right? Osteoporosis is a thing. Muscle growth, right? Like large muscles like legs and glutes, that equals longevity, right? Cognitive decline. I mean, I think about all the things. So when I think of self care, I don't just think of manis and petties. I think about what am I doing for longevity at this point in life? And how am I preparing for that? Because I got 2 kids I wanna be around for, and someday I might have grandkids that I wanna be around for. And I don't want my choices today to prevent me from doing that.
This is what our moms didn't have,
No,
was
not at all.
people talking about that. And
Yes.
I think, and maybe they're still doing great, some of them, but how much more quality of life though could they maybe have given themselves?
Bingo. Yep.
Right? Because I don't just want to survive.
No,
I
I wanna
want to,
thrive.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's where I am. Like I said, in the first year of my recovery, I was extremely restrictive and careful. And,
You're cautious, yeah. I wanna
yeah.
make sure I'm not gonna relapse from this. I wanna stay on track.
And
Protect
over
that.
time, I figured out the things that kind of helped me to settle into a pretty easy place of where I know I'm taking care of myself. Like you said, taking care of myself is not mani pedis, although that's
It's not
wonderful.
negotiable.
Right, yeah. But yeah, it's the every single day I make choices for myself that I
Mhm,
know are going to set me up for the best possible mental health that I can have. And I do believe that when your mental health is
mhm,
good, not just stable, but
mhm.
good,
Yep.
everything falls into place after that. And it's everything from sleeping to eating properly, fueling, and not just having,
Nutrition, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
dieting.
right,
Nutrition.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in terms of picking up my grandkids, not in terms of what size can I fit into. And it's funny
Or
how,
what the weight on the scale is, right? That was a tough one for me to move away from, but it's like, it is what it is.
and I threw away my scale. We actually didn't have a scale in the house for a few years. I ended up getting one back at one point. I think like a neighbor at a yard sale or something, and I was like, or gave me one.
I think I'm ready for this, okay.
Yeah, and yes, and because I actually wanted to see if I was ready for it, because I do think that there is a healthy relationship that you can have with tracking yourself, and kind of.
Yeah, yeah, like, as I'm building muscle, I'm kind of curious on where it at is, and it's interesting because for the past, I would say year and a half, I've been pretty consistent. 2 years definitely been working out, walking and stuff even further, but the weight training has been the past 2 years. Well, it's funny because I didn't think that my scale's been pretty consistent, weight-wise, but I went down a whole bra size. And you don't your breast tissue, yes, we're gonna age and things shift, but I've recomped my body. Like, I have a butt now. I've lost breast size, and my weight is still the same. And then I look back at pictures and I'm like, there is differences in my body even though my weight is still the same. So that scale, it lies.
It does, and most importantly is, how do we feel,
How do we feel? Yeah.
right? It's like, if I feel great, then it doesn't matter, and if you get on the scale, it's higher, and we've learned too
It's
that
gonna
with
move. Yep.
hormones and,
Oh,
and all kinds of,
oh, did you have a bowel movement today? Yeah, all the stuff.
yeah. Yeah, so I think, and that's what I try to, stay in focus to, is how do I feel? Figuring that out with whether types of exercise. I was in the fitness industry for a long time. I was a trainer, I was a group exercise instructor for a long time. And I definitely over the years felt like you should do this, you should do that. This is the best workout, or this is the best diet, all that stuff. Forget all of it. Do
Yeah.
trial and error for yourself as
Yeah.
long as it takes. Enjoy the journey on the way there.
Yeah, and I wanna reiterate too, like, the change that I saw, I'm not lifting there's been periods where, yeah, I've lifted 5 days in a week, walked with my weighted vest, but more consistently through the winter doing this has taken some of my time. I would say 2 to 3 days a week, and now the weather's getting nice, so I'm getting the walking back in. So I wasn't going crazy. And I'm half an hour, maybe an hour, but I'm not consistently working out down there. I might be doing things in between. So it's not like I'm going crazy, and there's still changes happening. The biggest part now, this is kind of what I've consistently heard, is adding the rest factor in there because what your muscle doesn't build when you're working out, that's actually the breaking down. You need the rest for the repair for the muscles to grow.
And that reminds me too of how I talk to my kids because I explain to them because 'cause they're both athletes, and instead of just yelling at them to, "You gotta eat more protein," and
Yep.
this and that. I explained to them what protein does, that when you guys are going and doing your training, you're breaking down the muscle fibers.
Mhm.
The only thing that fills that is protein. And
Mhm.
that's how you gain strength and size. And,
Mhm.
that's how you repair that, and helping them to understand what vitamins are and nutrients.
Why we might, yeah, yeah.
I didn't have that. It was just, food was just,
It was garbage. A banquet microwave meal was like a treat if my dad was headed out for the night or something or had something to do.
yeah.
My kids would die if I had to have them eat that for dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. And we didn't talk about the whys. I love that. I love relating it to my kids in a way that how can they be the best humans that they can be, and that food can be, it should be enjoyed. It should be joyous
Mhm,
and celebratory. That's all wonderful, but it also can be such a strong tool to help you achieve everything that you want to achieve in the easiest way. If you're fueled right, your
mhm.
brain is working well, your
Oh,
mind,
yeah.
right, your energy is working well. So explaining it to them, I'm hoping that, of course, no kid is going to come out unscathed by the
Right, right. We know that we're doing our best.
humans, right. But at least for them to at least be equipped with the knowledge. I wish I had that. I wish that, I learned healthy eating habits and understanding of food, what it is. And yeah, so it's
You're paying it forward. You're breaking the generational trauma by teaching your kids and doing something different with them than what you had done with you. And again, not to blame the generations before us, I just don't think they had the resources that we have today. I think they have options to change today if they're still around, right? They have access to. You could change at any age. Um, you're definitely giving them a gift, I think, in their lives, and hopefully they don't have to go through some of the things that we went through as kids, and hopefully that already puts them in a better position. That's
that's
the
it,
goal.
right? If they don't have to go through uh that, I do feel like I'm giving them a gift of showing them what a
Yeah, you
healthy
are.
eating did, and healthy and
Healthy relationship, yeah.
yes, that 100%. Yeah, that's at the foundation of everything, just showing them how we can be healthy humans and how we can have a healthy relationship, conflict resolution, all the wonderful things that we, my husband and I learned over the years is I love all of my history. I love all of the struggle. I love all of the pain because it got me. Thankfully, I learned from it and I continue to. It's not going to stop, right? There's going to be struggles in life.
Yeah, healing's not a destination, it's this lifelong process that we take along with us.
Yeah. Yeah, just loving the journey, right? Loving
And
yourself
yourself.
through the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would, I know we're tying up here, so what would your takeaway be to somebody fighting the food battle, right? Fighting the addiction with food and struggling with that. What would your takeaway be?
I think one of the is that love and forgiveness that I said to myself. I think the more tangible side of that I ultimately learned was the forgiveness, the letting yourself go for where you are today, for why and how you got where you are today. Let that go. And
Mhm.
then just start. Don't tell yourself, you have to be all of this in one day, and your whole
Mhm.
life can change. And, just start and whatever that looks like, just, one thing. Start with one thing and it will lead to the next. But if you can't give yourself grace
Mhm.
for everything that led up to where you are, that's what the rest is gonna be so much harder. Forgive yourself. Give yourself grace. Let it go. love yourself through all that you did. It happened. You got there. The only thing that matters is everything from now.
Mhm. Yeah, this moment onward, right? I mean, we can't go back, we can't change the past. We have to get to a place of radically accepting this was what this was, and there's obviously some things that some people sometimes need to process some of that stuff to get to that place. But I think the forgiveness, no matter what, whether you're processing with a therapist or not, is huge. And there's no time like the present, right? Tomorrow's not guaranteed. The past is gone. And we have this moment. This is it today.
Yes, amen.
I love it. Wow, Julie, this has been amazing. And your story of recovery and overcoming addiction and eating disorders is a story that I'm so glad that you make the choice to share that because it's inspiring. And I know you're helping people. And like you said, even if it's one person, that it's almost like it feels like it wasn't. I didn't have to go through all this for nothing.
That's it. That's I'm so grateful to be on here with you and get to share. If I reach one person from your audience or mine, I'll
Hmm.
share the heck out of
Yep.
this. That just inspiring hope in one person, right? That's huge. And then the ripple effect of that if they can start healing and give hope to more. That's it because we all can change. Like you said, it doesn't matter how where you are in life, how old we are.
Mhm. Yep,
Yeah,
or how young. Yeah. Yep,
yeah.
just matters that you do it. Alright. Well, it was great talking to you. Thank you for being here, sharing your story, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Unapologetic Midlife Podcast. The Unapologetic Midlife Podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical and mental health or professional advice. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapeutic relationship with Mindy Labazetta, LMHC. Always consult with a qualified healthcare or mental health professional regarding your individual needs. If you are experiencing a crisis, call 911 or dial or text 988 for the suicide hotline. Hope to see you soon. And as always, like and share. Don't be afraid to review us and share us with a friend.